Wow, a Range Rover, 105,000 new for this supercharged 510 horsepower Range Rover. It's only a third of that now, just 8 years later. Should we go in style or should we talk about Sunday? Hello and welcome to the Sunday Rant. I'm Mark, your autonomous host, and I got a number of letters about this week, and so we got a kind of a double shot. We'll talk about these two things. You know, this week we're going to talk about Werner and Kodiak and their unholy alliance, as they say, about autonomous driving. But this week, to show that this isn't really going to go anywhere anytime soon, I don't think. I'm going through, and there's a new construction zone. So have any of you had this? Freightliner, and probably many of these other manufacturers, see, we're cheap, so we only buy Freightliners, has these sensors, okay, that I turn them all off. So I wanted to see how they work in a construction zone, which is you're in the left lane with 1 million barrels. And actually I was counting, they put about 100 barrels per mile down. I thought that was pretty interesting where I was, because that's how bored you are out there driving. And so there are just hundreds and hundreds of barrels all over the place. So my truck has, adaptive radar, collision mitigation, and lane keeping assist, where it'll try to center you in the lane, and also lane departure, whereas if it sees you go over a line with its little eyeballs or whatever, it tries to pull you back in the lane that way. Okay. So I thought, all right, I'm going to turn all this stuff back on, because the first thing I do when I get in there is I got to go in, I got to turn off the lane keep, I got to turn off the lane departure, and then I got to go in the settings and turn off the blind spot. It's got blind spot warning on it for the tractor, and then turn off the blind spot warning for the trailer. Then I can finally drive. That's what they pay me to do. So turn all this back on and go in this little construction zone. And what happens? Oh, the truck freaks out. It freaks out like the freak. Okay? I mean, as the road just gets the slightest bend in it, it sees ahead of it is a barrel, and that's it. Beep, 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 beep. Every barrel, as you're turning this corner, beep, beep, beep. Think red, lights up red, which turns the radio off. Okay, heaven forbid we listen to the radio when we're crashing. And that's why, in a couple of minutes I had to turn that back off. It has no idea what it's doing. And Freightliner, in my opinion, should be ashamed of itself for even offering this system on the road. It shouldn't be allowed on the road still. To this day, this is a 2022 I was driving. To this day, the truck has no idea what it's doing. Okay, that takes us to Werner Enterprises and their alliance with Kodiak. Alliance sounds like the game of Risk. So what they're doing, they have a route from, if I remember, Dallas to Lake City. We talked about this on the a tortilla shell inspired podcast, which went out a few days ago, and more to come. So check it out there. So Kodiak is an autonomous truck maker. They automate truck driving. And so they have this route going from Dallas to Lake City, Florida and back. Werner says, what we did is we listened to Mark at Trucking Answers. I'm kind of not quoting exactly what they said. And because at each end they have a drop yard, okay, a drop yard for this truck, where final mile drivers, they call them, local drivers at each end, go take the trailer and deliver it, and then bring a loaded trailer back. So the autonomous truck just goes back and forth between these drop yards, which is how I've always said it's going to work. They ran the truck 152 hours out of 7 days, out of 168 hours. But they're like, it ran autonomous. No. And then when you read the fine print, they have a safety driver in the truck because they're required to still. Okay? They're still required to. The truck is not driving itself. It's in autonomous mode, but there's somebody there waiting to take over when it sees a barrel or God knows what all else it sees. These things are not ready yet for prime time, but they will be. So you people writing, what am I going to do? Well, it's a ways away from working yet. Okay, it has to be a specific route at the moment. They've mapped the road out exactly. They go just to these yards. But what will you do? You'll be the one that takes the trailer from the yard to the dock if it comes to that. Because the first person to automate is a solo driver. Look how much time a week the truck does not drive, okay? A lot. Because you're sitting around like sleeping and stuff like that. So that's the first person to get the boot. Then the next are teams. Because like they said on this truck, all it has to do is stop and fuel. It can continue to run all week. It doesn't ever need to take a break. It doesn't need a 30-minute break. It doesn't take off on holidays. It doesn't do any of that. So yeah, these large companies, which will be the ones that can afford it, will be the first ones to buy this technology, to buy the trucks, and to take over routes. No problem. Because it's a while before the truck can even figure out if it's a barrel, if it's a person, if it should slam its brakes on. There's got to be a big disconnect between what Freightliner is putting out there, which is abject garbage from what I've seen, just not even usable, to what Kodiak is. And why this level 2, which is what the truck would be considered at Freightliner, is even allowed on the road, is beyond me. If somebody has an in at Werner, I'd like to know more about how this works there. I wrote to them, of course, no response. Heaven forbid they talk to anybody about the actual workings of how it is. They said it was on time all week. What happens if there's weather? What happens in the ice? All those kind of things. What are the contingencies for that? How many times did the driver take over? I'd like to know all that if there's somebody, an insider. But otherwise, this autonomous, it's coming. They're working on it. Will it be here? Yeah. Probably in the 1800s. Is anybody ever going to fly? Yeah, probably. So this is coming. But you have a while to go, like decades, before this takes over the industry. So don't fret. And we will talk to you on the next Trucking Answers.